morning, everyone.
Good morning.
You know, in the early 1980s, there was a movie, a Steve Martin movie called The Man with Two Brains. Right? Now, I saw that movie 40 years ago when it was new. I remember very the name suggests. But I do remember one scene in particular from this movie. Steve Martin in the film plays a widower. His wife had passed away, and he had fallen in love with another woman and wanted to marry her. And she was not a very good woman. She was an evil woman. And he was seeking permission from his deceased spouse to marry this woman. He's in this room where there's a portrait of his deceased wife, and he's some kind of a sign that it's okay to marry this woman. And suddenly the lights start flashing in the room, and the room is shaking, and a crack appears in the wall, and the portrait spins around, and you hear this woman's voice saying, "No, no, no." And that goes on for a few seconds, and then he looks up, he says, "Just any kind of sign, I'll be looking for it." Well, I think that's kind of what's happening in the gospel here. We're looking for these signs and missing the greatest sign that is among them. Jesus Christ, God made flesh, living and working among them, performing miracles, teaching and preaching, and they miss it. Jesus says the sign will not be given. It's not that they don't get it, it's that they don't get it. They have the sign, they just don't get it. And I think that happens to us sometimes. We miss the obvious. It happens to me anyway. You know, when we wonder, how do we see God working in the world? What signs do we see of God's presence, God's loving presence in the world? If you turn on the news, it seems like it's evil piled upon evil. Where is God in all of this? But God is there in the goodness and the response to those evil acts, right? So we sometimes miss the obvious. Here in this chapel, we have a sign. Signs point to something greater, some greater reality. We have a sign in this chapel that points us to the reality of Jesus Christ. That bread and wine over there points us to the reality of Jesus Christ. And what more powerful a sign could there be, which will become the body and blood of Jesus Christ? No more powerful a sign of Christ is there. And then when we receive that body and blood into our body, we become the sign. As we leave here today, we become the sign to point to the reality of Jesus Christ. How do we do that? St. Francis is credited with the quote, "Preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words." That's how we do that. That's how we become that sign that points to Jesus, by living a life that reflects the gospel values, that reflects the teachings of Jesus Christ. Love of neighbor, love of God, doing acts of justice, charity, mercy. These are the things, these are the signs that point to Jesus. And so this morning, as we prepare to receive this most holy Eucharist, let us truly become the sign. Let us not look for the sign. Let us realize that we ourselves are the sign that points to Jesus.